So Doctor Who has had many different concepts for episodes over the years, and almost all of them are good and some are less than impressive. Cough, loving monsters. Anyway, I want to talk about some rejected episode concepts for Doctor Who. Now, this is mostly going to be New Who, but I've tried to sprinkle some classic Who in there as well. And speaking of classic episodes, we're going to start off with The Final Game. I want to talk about this because the concept is pretty cool. The Final Game was intended to be Jon Pertwee's final serial as the Doctor. The reason this episode is different from Planet of the Spiders in 1974 is because this episode would have been the final appearance of the Master, with Delgado's character being written out of the show entirely. If this happened, then the modern Master we know today could have never existed. So the reason this episode idea was scrapped was due to Roger Delgado's tragic death in a car accident in Turkey. The episode was scrapped and the Master later appeared in The Deadly Assassin. Thank God this happened. Apologies to Delgado's family, but again, the Master is an iconic character, and if Delgado hadn't died, then the modern Master we know today probably could have never existed. Right, moving on from Classic Who for a bit, next up we have the Suicide Exhibition. The story originally intended for Series 4, this story would see the Doctor and presumably Donna in the 1940s during World War II, where a squad of Nazi soldiers lead an assault on a London Natural History Museum plagued by monsters. The Doctor would discover a maze of puzzles and traps beneath the museum. This would lead the Doctor into avoiding traps and fighting the Nazis. Remind you of anyone? Okay, next up, an Untitled Christmas special for 2008. So, before the next Doctor was thought of, Russell T Davies toyed with the idea of a Doctor Who / Harry Potter crossover. Davies even wanted J.K. Rowling to guest write the episode. The main plot would be that an alien creature of unknown origin attaches itself to J.K. Rowling. The real world is then replaced by a world filled with monsters, wizards, and magical creatures, and the Doctor would have to stop them at Christmas. But this episode was scrapped in favour of the next Doctor, which featured, of course, the return of the Cybermen. Okay, now we're going back to semi-classic Doctor Who here. Next up is the 1990s US revival. So I touched upon this in my Doctor Who after 1989 video here, but I'd like to go into a bit more depth in this video. The Doctor Who 1996 TV movie starring the lovely Paul McGann was intended as a backdoor pilot for a new series. Before you think about it, I should note that the Americans would have had the keys to the TARDIS on this one. As the season rolls on, the show would have been chopped and changed, and the show would have veered off canon-wise from the original show quite a bit. This was cancelled due to the poor reception of the TV movie, so let's be glad this never happened. Okay, next up, this is the last one on the list, the original episode 2. So before Tooth and Claw was even written, the original second episode in Series 2, David Tennant's debut series, would have been quite different. While Queen Victoria would have still prominently been in the episode, the plot is almost entirely different. The episode was set in Buckingham Palace and would have still featured Queen Victoria, as I just mentioned, but she would have had an alien insect stuck in her eye. This was all I could find with the plot. The episode was eventually changed into Tooth and Claw, a vastly more popular episode, in my opinion, because Series 2 is probably the golden series of Doctor Who. We've got great stories, great villains, and while there are some less than stellar standout episodes, i.e. Fear Her and Love and Monsters, those are my two least favourite Who episodes in the Tennant era. What my least favourite episode in main Doctor Who is, I'll leave that to the fanbase to figure it out. Anyway, there are still loads more interesting episode concepts. Death of the Doctor, which was originally going to be a Series 6 episode, almost the entirety of Series 6 of the Sarah Jane Adventures, a Rose Tyler spin-off, cancelled episodes of Torchwood. I mean, the possibilities are endless, and I may do videos on all these at some point in the future. I may have a video coming up on Torchwood soon enough. So those were the scrapped episodes for Doctor Who. Was there anything here that may have interested you? Let me know in the comments below. I think the J.K. Rowling special would have been pretty cool, although the Suicide Exhibition sounds pretty cool as well. Anyway, thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.